Andrew Osenga, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Andrew, I was curious about this. So you are an author, a songwriter, a producer, so many hats that you wear, and probably your days are spent taking off one hat and putting on another hat creatively in so many spaces. This is an unfair question. Yeah, there's the hats. But if you had to choose one thing of all of the things that you do, what would you choose? What's at the top of your list?
Oh man. Well, if it's what I get to do because I have free time or what I do because of my life calling, those are probably two different things. If it's my free time, I play guitar with my friends. I play electric guitar with guitar pedals and make noise. And that's fun. I love that more than anything. And thankfully, I get to do that a lot for my job, and that's really fun. But that is probably not my life call, like my life work. That's just that's like the icing on the cake, is that my life work lets me get to do that a lot. What I spend most of my time doing is caring for artists who are creating songs that the church sings.
Mm.
And so I do that in different ways. I've done that at record labels. I do that for do that working with universities. I do that often by meeting songwriters and walking around the lake, which I do every morning, and in a number of different ways. That's kind of how I've spent the last number of years. I feel like caring for the people at sort of the aquifer level, like sort of the headwaters of where songs develop, so that what we are singing on a Sunday morning downstream, if I can care for the people that are creating those, that's a really important work. And
Mm.
and that's not something that I intended to do or like sought to do. It's just something that I sort of kept getting sucked into or getting invited into, and often didn't want to do, though I cared a lot about. And then eventually realized, like, oh, I I am passionate about this and kind of feel maybe uniquely equipped to do it. And have been really blessed by that work and those relationships. So,
Did you say you meet artists to walk around a lake every morning?
oh yeah, I realized as I said that came out weird. I walk around a lake every morning and I meet artists often there. Sometimes
That
I walk
didn't
by
sound
my,
weird to me. I was like, that's really fascinating. That seems like a rhythm or a practice that's unique, but probably very life giving, I'd imagine.
it is. I'm a little sweaty. I literally just came back from doing that. There's a about 10 minutes from my house. There's a lake called Radnor Lake. It takes about an hour to walk around it, and it's really beautiful. And so I go there every morning and I walk, sometimes by myself or meeting people, sometimes old friends, but often, often with songwriters. Sometimes I walk with people who are 20, 30 years older than me, and sometimes people that are 20, 30 years younger than me. Not 30 years younger than me, unless they're my kids, but 20. And I've spent, probably 100, 200 times with younger songwriters. And that's been a lot of, I just find it's a very different conversation walking around the lake than sitting in some cool coffee shop. If you want to really talk about your heart and the gospel and what God's doing and your church and the struggles you're having and the things that you care about, and man, you can do that differently out in the woods than you do
Yeah.
over a latte, you know,
Yeah.
where somebody else cool is sitting over there, you know. And there's something about the rhythm of walking side by side that has been really beautiful and really transformational. So I've been doing that about a year and a half now, and it really has been wonderful.
I'm curious, what are the consistent anxieties and struggles that artists have communicated to you on those walks? Obviously, you don't have to single out particular people, but
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a thread of conversation over the last number of years, as long as you've been doing this, that, man, artists and songwriters are feeling the weight of this. What would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are two different types of conversations. There's the songwriters that are working at churches
Mm.
and who are writing actively for their congregations specifically, where they're also dealing with, the head pastor and the elders and the budget meeting and the fact that they're also doing two other jobs at the church because they got hired to do one job, but they're really getting asked to do 6 jobs, but they're trying to only do 3 jobs. And they're also a tech director, and they're also now kind of leading the youth group. And, so they're feeling pulled in different directions, and they're trying to
Yeah.
decide, is this what I want to do? And, they're also maybe wanting to make an artist record. They're always wanting to make an artist record. I want to write other kinds of songs too. I want to make my cowboy record and my pop record. And so usually when I had those conversations, there's often a who am I outside of this building conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is this the job I signed up for? And how long can I do this? It's usually, a young person's game
Yeah.
because those jobs are 130-hour a week jobs that pay a 20-hour a week paycheck. And I don't think people understand how much those songwriters are really, really caring about trying to create songs specifically for those congregations and how much effort and heart goes into that. I think if people realize that, not that they would, I'm not saying like, oh, you really need to cry for them, but like, I think people might appreciate that if they really understood how much people really genuinely have a heart for the congregations they serve. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. I've been moved by that. And then people who are, writing for a publishing company, their audience is, they're writing to get songs on records. They're writing to hoping that Chris Tomlin's going to record the song, that Elevation's going to record the song. Like they're
Yep.
writing for they're not trying to meet the needs of a congregation. They're trying to meet the needs of radio / the church, quote unquote. And those are different conversations. And those are also conversations around identity. It's always around identity because that box is very, very small. The business has dictated that the songs that can I get like in the weeds on this?
I would love for you to get in the weeds. Let's
Okay.
go.
So, and if people say this all the time on here and you're like, we know this, just stop me. But the stats have shown that over the last like 10 years, every song that's gotten to the top CCLI, top 10, top 20 has been a radio song, has been in the top 40 of Christian radio. Now, that's a chicken and the egg conversation. Has it been a radio hit that then became a church song, or was it a church song that then became a radio hit? There's a lot of nuance there that I think doesn't get discussed when people are in record labels and are looking for what song is going to get put on a record. But what that means is that people are in songwriting rooms trying to write radio songs with church language. They're trying to write pop songs that have church words that feel and sound like pop songs because they need to be radio songs. Because if you want to get a song to be sung in the church, it has to be a radio hit. So that means we're not trying to write songs first and foremost that are going to feel great, that are going to work really well in church. Songs that work really well in church might not follow the format of a radio pop song.
Yeah.
Historically, songs that work well in church might be call and response. They might have echoes. They might have, they have a lot of repetition, or they might have like 5 verses. That's not a Katy Perry song. And so, what a pop song is 2 short verses, a banger chorus, a bridge that's super simple, kick drum that's just,
It's the worship song template.
it's the
That is the
worship song
worship
template.
song template.
But the thing is, it's not the worship song template, it's a radio song template.
Yeah.
And it's not the fault of the songwriter that they're being asked to do sort of an impossible task. They're being asked to fit, hey, will you write The Tale of Two Cities in the format of a Dr. Seuss book? It's kind of what's happening, right? It's like, it's this product in this format. And to be very fair, like some people are really good at it. And some people have done amazing songs that are like, dang, you nailed that. Like that is a beautiful, powerful, like scripturally resonant, wonderful church pop song. Like there are people who are so gifted at doing that. However, there are a lot of songwriters who are great church songwriters who are not great radio pop songwriters. To pull the camera back further, there are also a lot of things the church needs to sing that are not great radio topics. And I think that's a bigger issue for the needs of the church, for the needs of people standing in the pews. That's a much bigger topic than even what the songwriters need. Because what sells on a Tuesday morning on the way to work, what is safe and positive and encouraging as a pop song. And I get that that's a product. That's a very specific need. That is, you've got about maybe 4 subjects that you can sing about. But if you look at an old hymnal from 1920, 1820, 1620, you're going to find 100 different topics.
Yeah.
Being silent, giving up your money because it's harder for a rich man to walk through it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. We don't sing about that because that does not sell well.
That's not going to be on K-Love, I'll tell you that.
It's not, but it's Jesus said it, and also churches have sung it for thousands of years, 2,000 to be exact, and loving your enemy and being quiet, different forms of prayer, just sacrificial giving, all these different things that are like, they are sort of integral to the life of a believer and also to the life of a suffering believer, because most people are carrying some kind of suffering with them. All people are carrying suffering with them at some point. That is not a great product, right? Is to talk about suffering a lot. However, the gospel talks about suffering on every page. And the old hymnals talk about suffering on every page, because they realize that like people are coming to church because they're bringing their pain to God, because that's where Jesus meets us. He meets us on the cross, and that just is a very, that is the central point of where we meet Jesus. We meet Jesus in our suffering, and it's not the end. Thank God, it's not the end of the story. But if you are a salesman, you quickly want to get past that, and you want to get to the end of that story. But if you just lost your kid in a car crash, or you're going through a divorce, or you're sending your kid off to college, or your girlfriend just left you, or whatever the thing you're going through, like, there are a lot of people that are walking in Sunday morning who are like not feeling victorious.
Yeah.
They're doubting. They are going like, this might be the last time I'm ever here. God, are you going to show up today? And we need a wider range of songs for them. We need to serve people with a wider range of songs. And so all that to say, when I walk around the lake with songwriters, they're desperate to write a wider range of songs, because they are the people who are going into church and saying, I need more. I want to sing these songs. I need to write these songs. I'm going through this myself.
Hmm.
You know, they don't want to write product. They want to write songs that serve the church.
Yep.
They want to write songs that process their own walk with Jesus, which might be a walk that currently is about doubt or is about grief or is about how to love your enemy or is about how to deal with the fact that they've got to figure out this relationship in their life with step parents or with, you know, being in crippling debt or whatever, like these
Right.
real life situations. And they're like, but I can't talk about that. So
The
that's what we talk about.
What would you say, Andrew, is the reason for this shift? Like, it's almost like we have too many salesmen on Sunday morning rather than servants, or the realities of the worship industry have created unhealthy habits, or given us kind of an unhealthy perspective where we sort of see everything through this lens of how can I scale and sell this? And it leads our songwriters down a certain path. It leads our congregation down sort of a consumeristic path. All of it. Like, is the
Yeah.
answer that simple, or is it more complex than that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's set out to do anything evil. You know, I mean, I think it's a lot of good hearted people that I want to reach more people. I'm going to build a bigger radio station. I'm going to build a bigger church. You know, I think some people maybe did that out of ego and you know, greed. And I think a lot of people did that out of a desire to serve more people. And I think we also just live in a culture that assumes that bigger is better. We are just, you know, some kids are born with blue eyes, some kids are born with brown eyes. We are kids that are born with capitalist eyes, and we just assume that bigger is better. And that sort of means that thinner goes wider, living in a marketplace. And so, yeah, I mean, I understand how we got here. It's like we got here because the Jesus people on the beach were hippies who decided to like sing jam band hippie songs about Jesus to tell their friends on, you know, on drugs about Jesus. And
Yeah.
then the hippies became yuppies, and then the yuppies wanted to make songs about Jesus for that were safe for the family, and then that turned into safe entertainment, right? So then
Yep.
the Jesus music became wholesome entertainment, and that created this industry of safe versus unsafe,
Yep.
and that's where sort of the dichotomy was created. Before that, there wasn't a secular, you know, religious divide in that same way. I mean, there were always in some degrees was, but not the same way. We had all of a sudden we had Christian bookstores. We had a physical boundary where you could buy physical product of Christian things, and we could keep our kids in these safe sort of playpens, right? And it was very clear, and there was physical, you know, physical product in physical spaces.
Yeah.
Um, but as that has eroded, and also as like people don't necessarily think that way, is like those kids, me, are now raising kids, and we're like, I don't think there was any. Maybe the Beatles. I didn't need to be shielded from the Beatles. I'm not going to raise my kids that way. Like I want them to learn about this because they were awesome. And so there's a generation of people who are like, don't think that way.
Have you listened to Mike Cosper's podcast, Devil in the Deep Blue Sea with
Yeah.
Christianity Today?
Yeah. It's great.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's kind of talking about this a little bit. It's a little bit more about the satanic panic
Yeah.
of, you know, the devil is in everything, so we have to separate ourselves and we create our own kind of subculture.
Yeah.
But the irony in that story is
Yeah.
that we can't see the demons like under our own nose because we're afraid of like the devil and everything out there.
Yeah. Oh
So
man.
it's an
Oh,
intense podcast, but I would encourage our listeners to check it out if you want. It's a little intense.
yeah. And I think there was a much less intense version of that was around just creating things that were safe and wholesome, and that still exists. And I don't think there's anything wrong with creating things that are. I mean, obviously, like I want my kids to watch things that are like Bluey's great. Like Blue, let's watch Bluey, and like
Right.
watch things that are appropriate, be exposed to things that are appropriate. But at some point you realize like, oh, just because they're Christians doesn't mean that it's good. Just because they're not Christians doesn't mean it's bad. Because man, some of the things some of this music wasn't great music and has terrible theology. And some of this other music that I was being shielded from was actually great and
Pretty amazing.
was talking about like really beautiful things and beautiful love songs or beautiful stories. And I think yeah, so that dichotomy falling away, I think was a good thing, us having to be more critical. But as far as but what it has left is that the sliver of CCM is like now really, really small, right? Like, so there used to be hundreds of bands and hundreds of artists in CCM, and now it's like, it's like Matthew West and Casting Crowns. And then everybody else had to go into worship music because that's the only thing that Christians can do for Christians that Taylor Swift can't do better, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah, it's
now,
intense.
so now all Christian artists, if they're not in their own little, unless they are created their own path of, some sort of artistic other world, Andrew Peterson's world, they're all worship artists because that's kind of the only other lane available.
It's
Or
what
you
sells.
are, or you are a Christian who just makes records, like you're Drew Holcomb and Need to Breathe, and you just are a band. Which 20 years ago, that was Jars of Clay and Sixpence None the Richer, who were
Yep.
really just kind of a band who were Christians, and you talked about it sometimes,
Yep.
right?
It is interesting, all the fears, all the baby boomer fears. Like I went through a season in my home where my parents said I couldn't even listen to Christian music. Definitely secular music was off the table, but then even the Christian
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
I remember listening to I Don't Want It by DC Talk,
Oh my
and my mom
gosh.
heard that across the room and was like, "What are you listening to, young man?" And it
Yeah,
was like no longer. Then it was just all worship music was the only thing that was safe, right?
yep.
And just that it sort of just creates a culture where
Dude.
you can't think critically about
Mm-hmm.
things. It's just like this is safe and this is unsafe,
Yeah,
which is very unhealthy. Like you
yeah,
said, the Beatles. Like I want to raise my kids to be able to like listen to the Beatles and say, "Wow, what beautiful art." Let's talk about what they're saying. Like, do you agree with this? Do you not agree with this?
yeah,
How does this make you feel? Rather than just demonizing everything, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, and how we relate to music is how we relate to the world too. How we relate to how we vote, how we relate to how we think about education, how we relate to, a million other things. Is are we gonna say yes, black and white, good, bad, or do we go, oh, we have to think critically. We have to
Yes.
listen to everybody talk and go, okay, yes, no, yes, yes, yeah, no, yeah. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. And that's hard to do.
Evangelicals don't like to be wrong.
Nobody likes to be wrong. I mean, it's so easy for me to be mad at evangelicals and to poke it because I was raised in it and because, like
It's an easy target.
it's
It's
an
an
easy
easy target.
target. It's an easy target for me, because I see it so clearly. And because right now I feel like they are not doing a great job always I feel like they're leaning into that punch. But at the same time, we all do it. I mean, everybody does it. It's like we all have our blind spots, but it's also our job, particularly as the people of Jesus, to encourage one another in love and kindness to say, hey, maybe you should listen to them. Maybe they got something to say. Let's not be so quick to judge
Yep.
and to ask for forgiveness when we were so quick to judge and to admit when we were wrong and to make amends. And, whether that's about music or that's about our politics or that's about how we drive or that's about how we treat our neighbors or whatever the thing is. And yeah, doubling down and just sort of putting your feet in the sand and your head in the sand. It's like, man, that never looks good. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the those people's kids are never proud of their parents. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I want my kids to look at me and go, and be, know that their dad had flaws, but be like, yeah, but I want them to be proud of who their dad was.
Yep. He was humble, you know?
And they saw him apologize, and they
Yeah.
saw him become a better person.
Yes. Andrew, I struggle a bit with the market surrounding worship.
Hit
And
me. Tell me.
it's easy for me to critique it, right? So if I had made millions, or a fortune off of worship songs, or
Sure.
even just being able to do that full time, like maybe I wouldn't critique it as much because I benefited from it. But I enjoy these kind of conversations, just different perspectives on how do we handle this in a healthy way? Something as sacred as the worship of God,
Yeah.
gathering of the people of God, but also, as we've been talking about, an industry that is focused on sort of profiting and exploiting and wringing it as of much money as possible from tours to songs and records and albums. How do you think about this? And I don't necessarily want to get into like let's demonize and
Yeah.
let's put down a bunch of movements and artists. That's obviously probably not a kingdom way to approach it, but I think there's just industry realities and realities that we all need to think about.
Yeah.
How do you think about it, and what are some ways we can do it differently in your mind?
Yeah, man. Well, that's what are some ways we can do it differently? I've spent my career trying to think of different ways to do it differently.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated, isn't it? I've been a musician for a living for 20 some years, 27 years maybe. I've worked uh, in the record side of it for maybe 10, 11 years. I was in particular spent about 6.5 years at Integrity Music. I was an A&R director, and that's artists and repertoire, so artists and songs. So
Yep.
which I was to find artists, develop them, and kind of project manager of albums and helping them pick songs, make the songs as good as they could be, figure out who's going to work on the records, oversee the every aspect of the records for a ton of artists at that label, and those were church songs. So depending on your church, maybe a lot of songs that your church sings, and loved that work, and also am very glad that I get to feed my kids, and so the fact that people, that there's an apparatus that pays for that is helpful. And so I'm glad that, a worker is worth its wage, and, which is a scriptural idea, and people are creating those resources. And so I think it's totally fair for them to get paid for that. I do think it's complicated when people are making tons and tons and tons of money doing that. I don't feel like it's a millionaire's job, you know.
Why?
Well, the older I get, the more I question whether any job is a millionaire's job. So
Okay. Yeah.
hard. But Acts 2, like, do we, what's our call there? I think we're each supposed to do our job and give what we can to everybody else who needs it. And
Wow. So good.
there is a B side to that statement, which is it's not like having $1 million exactly makes you like a good or bad person. That's an arbitrary number. Like, there are people of means who do amazing things. Like the Bible says, the rich young ruler comes up to Jesus and says, how do I get into the kingdom of heaven? He says, give everything you have to the poor. And he's like, no, right? He walks away.
Right.
But like in later chapters, there are many stories of people of means who give everything they have to the poor, right? With God, all things are possible. And history is full of stories of people who have done that kind of thing. And my life is full of stories of people who have done that kind of thing. The Sistine Chapel was paid for by a family who supported that work, right? And that's why we have these famous paintings years later. So were all the Renaissance paintings. Most of the nonprofit work that happens in America is paid for by wealthy families. My own nonprofit is paid for that way. So I think I want to make that clear. It's not that like, you know, writing a good song and people liking it, or being a doctor and making some money. Like it's not like these things are bad. It's wanting your kids to have a good school and having a nice house is not bad. It's also wanting other kids to have a nice school and having them to have a good house.
Mm.
That's the real question.
Not
It's
keeping it all to ourselves.
not keeping it all to yourself. So, and I think that's really what Jesus is asking, right? Is that like,
Yeah.
who is this for? Is it for you? Is it for the kingdom? Is it for us all?
Where do you think we get off track in the music industry? Is it, I guess this is maybe an impossible thing to fully unpack because you can't judge people's hearts. But I think generally speaking, when it comes to worship music and industry, where do we get off? Do we get off track with, like the rich can't enter the kingdom of God? And I don't know, like, I don't
Yeah,
even
I
know what
mean,
I'm asking.
like all things, uh, I don't think it's a matter of black and white, right? I think it's a matter of
Yeah.
degree. I think we are all walking around with angels and demons, and
Mm.
we have great, wonderful instincts and terrible, evil instincts, and we're constantly making decisions based on both of those things. And thank God we are not judged by either of them.
Yeah. Here's what I will say, and this is something I think about often, is there are so many, when it comes to worship music, a lot of churches kind of adopt the songs and the resources from the big movements. Great.
Yeah,
Not criticizing them. However, there is more beauty to be found on the margins in other spaces, maybe from people that aren't as influential or may not appear as successful, but they're out there. And I just want to encourage people, let's expand our curiosity when it comes to the songs that we sing. Like, let's expand where we look, let's expand what we do, let's open ourselves up to more voices, because I think we're all going to be better for that, rather than just latching on to the 4 or 5 sort of main movements. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. I think every church has somebody who has a song in their heart for their church. And if your church has 20 people in it, I think there might be somebody that has a song for that congregation. Um, and it might not be the best song. It might not be as good of a song as Ed Cash or Chris Tomlin can write, as far as, the hook or the catchiness or whatever. The lyrics might not be as tight or whatever. Um, I don't think that's what matters in some ways.
Yeah.
Because I don't think at the end of the day we're called to create products. I think we're called to sing a new song unto the Lord. And I think that God puts things on people's hearts and might say, hey, I know what's going on in our congregation. I know that we just lost somebody, or new people just came to this church and we're so excited, or I know what's happening in our community. Good things, bad things, sad things, wonderful things. We're in a season of rejoicing. We're in a season of grieving. And if there's a song coming up in your community, don't sing a Hillsong song, and sing the song that's maybe not as good, that's from your own pews. I think that's a beautiful thing. I challenge
I think
anybody
that's
to sing your
I
own
think
song.
that's actually that's more powerful, right? When you write about specific things, like specific life happening in your community. I've wrestled with this my whole life as a worship leader, and I'm sure others have too, where the industry realities influence you to sort of write generally or
Yeah.
broadly in terms of what will the church want to sing. But actually, the more honest local specific you are, even in some of your language where it's very maybe specific to a certain situation, that can be really powerful for your church. And oddly enough, maybe connect with people outside of it too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, the biggest songs worldwide often are the songs that are the most specific.
Yep.
In any genre, in any huge songs often have like tiny little details of street names, first names, who's
That's
Layla,
right.
like, um, Hey Jude, like, why is that? Why are we all singing that? That's
Hey there,
kids.
Delilah.
Yeah. Like we care for things that are specific. And it's like we watch a movie and we see ourselves in that movie, in that story. It's like, uh, yeah, the specificity of a thing is really important. And um, but but I also think giving somebody the dignity of singing their own song is really powerful, and it's awesome. It's like also, Max Lucado is a great preacher, but we have the preacher here, and let's hear him or her or whatever. But yeah, all that to say, yeah, the marketing of it's a tough thing because like at one point, marketing sounds gross, and another point, marketing is like telling a story, and it's how you tell people that you did something. And man, my friend writes this beautiful song, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want people to hear this song. This is
Yeah.
awesome. The song is great. I want people to know it. I want churches to sing it. I'm a worship leader. I'm going to go play this song, A, because I love it, B, because I want them to lead it. I want them to learn it, and I'm going to teach it. And I hope that they take it and start using it. And I hope they start using it because it's a great song. And I want them to sing great songs. And also, I'm glad that if it does well, that my friend can make a living. And like, that's a weird, but it also feels complicated. It feels weird. Like the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, capitalism is weird. And
Yeah. Maybe it's just something we'll never resolve
it's like we live
in the
in
earth.
a capitalist society, and like Acts 2 is not a capitalist society.
Right.
And like I think about this all the time, and it makes me sound like a crazy radical, but it's also just like reading the Bible. And it's like they gave what they had to whoever needed it. And I don't know.
It's hard to be an American and live in America, and then you read like Acts 2 and you're like, there's just
It's
cognitive dissonance, right? Or like you think about the worship industry a little bit and you're like, cognitive dissonance, right? And I agree with you. The Bible says a worker is worthy of his wage. I
yeah.
would never argue people shouldn't be paid. They should be
Yeah.
paid and they should be paid well. But there comes a point where we're just wringing it dry and we are building empires and we are
Yeah.
becoming so wealthy off of the church, you know?
Yes.
Like the
Eh,
church is our market and we are just wringing it for all it's worth. And I'm not even just talking about like prosperity preachers. That's like
Mm-mm.
blatant, like, give me your money and God will release an angel sort of stuff. I'm not talking about that, but just even just
Yeah.
the ways that we scale and scale and scale. It just, I'm confused by it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is posture. I remember early on in my career, I was probably 19, 20. I mean, I was brand new into this career. I should have been a sophomore or a junior in college, but I was a dropout. And I was literally at like a skate center for some weird event. And I was standing next to the president of a record company in Christian music in like the late 90s. And he was pontificating, and I was too young to know how to get out of this awkward conversation. And he said, Andy, I remember when I had this realization that the youth group was the last great untapped demographic. And like, I wanted to throw up. And like,
Wow.
I did not have the vocabulary to understand why. But I was like a year or two out of the youth group. I still had friends in youth group. I was a youth group leader. Like the youth group to me at that, I mean, particularly at that point in my life, was like, that was a safe space for me. That was a sacred space for me.
Yeah, it was pure, at least from the what you saw it as, very
Yeah.
pure.
And the fact that maybe there was like a poster of DC Talk on the wall, that maybe that guy mailed us. I don't know. Like, I didn't think of that as marketing. I don't know. It was just a poster on the wall, but it was marketing. We got marketed to. We were a demographic to that guy or somebody like that guy, right? And that is not the posture, right? Like, I can say unequivocally, like, to me, that is not the posture. Like, I don't want to work in that industry.
Mm,
I will quit that industry. I am not here to serve the church demographic or to market to the church demographic or whatever, like to sell product to them. That is gross. To me, like, my church songs are not just like, oh, I could sell these, or I guess I could sell jeans at Levi's. Like, I could just whatever job, like those are not random projects, just different, different products I could sell. It's like, no, this is a calling to serve the church. And there's an imperfect apparatus in a fallen world that, you know, that provides for the workers that do that work.
yeah.
And I hope that my being in that industry can, by the time I leave it, make it a little less imperfect. Right? That I hope I can, in whatever conversations I'm in, whatever boardrooms I'm in, can say, hey, what if we did it this way instead of that way? And that it can be healthier by the time I'm gone. It won't be perfect, but nothing is in this fallen world. So I guess that's what I would say. But
Yeah.
I will say it is about posture.
Yeah. And it sounds like what you're doing with anchor hymns is maybe a little bit different. And even what we started our conversation with in this idea of saying different things, writing about different topics and themes. I think that's really important for the church today because we're not. Most Sunday mornings, it's sort of a CCLI top 20 grab of what's working, what are our members kind of hearing on the radio so that we get this high engagement. That's mostly the focus. Like nobody's really thinking, not nobody, that's a blanket statement, but thinking deeply about the theology of our songs and the balance over the course of a year in themes that we're singing so that we are leading our people into spiritual formation through worship. That's a rare conversation. Talk to us about anchor hymns and maybe how that
Yeah.
fits into this whole thing.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. And I also think a lot of I think that's a rare conversation at some churches, not because there aren't people that want to have it, but because I think they're not given the opportunity to have it. I think, you know, they're just given a menu that doesn't give them even the option to have that conversation. So
And
I think,
if something's working so well, like why would you change it? I think that's the perspective from a lot of leaders is what's working on Brandon Lake's tour. Like if we just do that, then that's going to work for us. And it's kind of like, let's just find what works. But that pulls us out of some conversations that we need to have, I think.
yeah. And yet, I would argue that the statistics would show that it's not working
I
and that
agree.
the church is not growing. People are leaving, and particularly young people, and people of every generation actually are leaving.
Yeah.
Boomers are leaving faster than any generation at this point, which is actually a really interesting statistic. The people that made their kids go to church are now the ones that are fastest to leave, which is really fascinating. And their kids are actually the ones that are starting to come back. And when they come back, they're not coming to big churches. They're coming to small churches. They're coming to either uh, very liturgical churches or very charismatic churches. They don't want a program. they don't want a show. They want something that's experiential. So they want something that feels like it's not a product. So they either
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
stand
show.
it. They want something that feels old fashioned, stand and sit. This has been here for two millennia, or stand and sit and jump around and speak in tongues. Either way, it's experiential. They're tasting and they're feeling it. And they know that that experience was different because they were there. All that to say, when I was working at my last company at Integrity Music, there was a conversation around, we should start a project about hymns. And all eyes sort of turned to me as the old, like the nerd
You're
in
the
the
hymn
room,
guy.
like, this guy. And which is, I was like, yeah, I would love to do it. And so when I was, should have been in college and all my friends were in college, I was involved in this thing called Indelible Grace,
Yeah.
which was this thing, literally that was our Sunday school class at this RUF, which is like the Presbyterian college ministry. Our college pastor loved old hymns and was a guitar player, fantastic guitar player, smartest guy I know. And he challenged us to take these old hymn texts and put them to new music, and we started making records of these songs, and they have kind of gone around the world. And a bunch of us have gone on to have careers in music, and it's been really fun. So there's a whole community of us who kind of have this background of these old songs.
Mhm.
And that's really how I was raised in a fundamentalist church, raised on hymns that I did not like because they were boring to me. And I thought I left that behind. And then,
You think that you didn't like them, like that had more to do with the fundamentalism than the actual songs?
yeah, oh, I've got a whole theory about it, dude. Yeah. I think, well, here's what's fascinating about the hymns and my fundamentalist upbringing is I was being taught one thing from the pulpit and being taught another thing in the hymns. Uh, so when I was 19, I started touring. I got in a van and started playing shows around the country, 200, 250 shows a year. And most of those shows were at churches or at like Christian colleges. And so I'm playing at Baptist churches and Methodist churches and Lutheran churches and Presbyterian churches and Assemblies of God and Seventh-day Adventists. And I'm meeting people from every denomination. And before I even understand what denominations are, no idea what's different about these people. I'm so sheltered. I have no clue. What I know is that these are Christians. They love Jesus and they're nice to me, and we become friends. At a lot of these places, I attend some of their worship services. Many of them are singing the same hymns. So they're singing the same hymn at the super charismatic place and the super conservative place and the super mainline, the super Baptist. How are they singing the same hymn when they disagree on so much theologically? That's a really fascinating thing to me.
Hmm.
So there's something about these songs that is actually, to me, it's like they're like spies that are like sneaking across enemy lines, that are like communicating a truth to us beyond the borders of our denominations. And so I actually have done a deep study in these songs that have gone across denominational lines to figure out, like, what is it about these songs that we like, why do we all know great is thy faithfulness? And this is, by the way, this is before radio. This is before we had any mass market. We all knew great is thy faithfulness and how great thou art
How great thou art.
and
Yeah.
amazing grace and 'tis so sweet. And black people knew it and white people knew it. And like, that's pretty wild. Some of the main things are an awareness of an honest talk about suffering. They all talk about suffering. They all talk about time and place. They're all they all have mention of time and place. They talk about being right here, right now, and how God is with us right here, right now.
Mm.
And but they also mostly have an eye to the future. So they're very aware that, like, and most of our worship songs right now are very, very much about present tense. We're very much focused on the present tense, but we rarely sing about the past. Whereas like the Psalms, sing about what God has done all the time. just stories and stories of what God has done. And they also sing about the future all the time. And so do those old hymns, something that we don't do a lot. And then the mystery and the magnificence of God. And so God's presence with us in our suffering, in our time and place, and his mystery and his magnificence. And I just thought that was so fascinating. And I just love that idea of like, there are just these things that are just kind of deeper than our lines and our differences. All that to say,
Yeah.
I actually did that study because of this Anchor Hymns project. So we wanted to do this hymns project. And so I didn't want to just re-record those same 30 songs. I wanted to write new songs that could kind of follow in that tradition of those old songs that I love. So I did that deep dive into those hymns and invited a bunch of friends who I know are great songwriters and love Jesus and have kind of a draw to this kind of songwriting, but from all different denominations. And we gathered for a couple days. And what I did is I gave them old hymn texts and then scriptures that kind of related to that. And then we just wrote songs based on those old hymn texts, but new songs. And so that's people like Sandra McCracken, Matt Maher, Paul Baloche, Dwan Hill, a big kind of community of people. And so we've been doing that. We've done 5 or 6 EPs and 2 full-length records. When I left the company about a year and a half ago, Integrity was very kind and generous to me, and they let me take that project with me. And so now, put one of the we were talking earlier about how do we change sort of the businessy-ness of worship music. So what I didn't want to do is just be like, well, now I'm going to have a company. Because I was like, well, me owning this is just makes me want to barf. So we're turning it into a nonprofit, and because I don't want to own it. Like I'm okay to lead it, but I don't want to
Yeah.
own it. I don't want this to be my new company. So we're literally like in the midst of the paperwork process right now to let it be a nonprofit. The idea is that we will continue to create songs and resources for the church where we can sing about a wider topic of just songs that churches need. And the idea is really to think about, and we've been kind of polling worship leaders too, of like, hey, what other songs do you need? Like, do you need offering songs? Do you need mission songs? Do you need songs about evangelism? Do you need songs about like, what kind of songs do you need? So we've been writing songs about doubt and giving and loving your neighbor and loving your enemy and lots of scripture songs, just putting scripture for kind of verbatim uh, to music. We've been doing call and response songs, which actually some of our songs that have done the best are like these really simple songs that are call and response echo. Like these are never going to work on radio, but churches have been using them. They're so easy to teach. They're not
Yeah.
kids songs, but they're really, really great to sing.
Yep.
And so anyway, we want to create songs for churches and also kind of in a more missional sense, we want to use this idea of we gather as a community to write and using this community writing to mentor younger writers. So if we've got people like some of the people I mentioned, people who've been around who have not just the gifts of songwriting, but who really love Jesus and who have a history of a walk with him and a deep love and knowledge of scripture, to sit with younger songwriters and to be able to pour into that with them and to
Yeah.
build friendships. Because otherwise, man, these young songwriters are just gonna be like, "Oh, I hope I can go on tour with Matt Maher someday." It's like, well, I don't, can't make that happen. But like, let's write a song together and let's just become friends and let's have meals together and do some community service projects together and just be in community together. And hopefully, that is another way that we can make the songs that we are creating as a community come from a healthier place by just having a healthier river upstream.
Yep. I love that, man. And I think one of the elephants in the room with this is I think a lot of worship leaders are very open to different kinds of songs, but oftentimes they're in a system that is less favorable towards it.
Hmm.
Or at least that conversation isn't talked about between a lead pastor or an executive pastor. And I mean, I remember when I was a worship pastor, I was told that every song needed to be declarative. Like it had to be
Hmm.
victorious and declarative. Like it was a specific sort of ethos of this is what we want our Sunday morning songs to be. So there really
Wow.
wasn't this openness to other songs, right? I wonder if you could just speak to that tension. Part of it is probably how do we educate or bring pastors into this dialogue with worship leaders and talking about healthy spiritual formation and song themes, because that's a challenge when you have all these
Gosh.
worship leaders that are like, yeah, let's do this, right? And then they go back to their programming meeting on Tuesday at 11 a.m. and they hear, heck no, we're not doing that. You know, what's working? Like what's pumping? You know what I mean? Can you speak to
Ye-
that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'll say this: I've never worked on staff at a church. I have a feel, probably because I would devolve in that meeting. I don't know how I'd handle it. What's really interesting to me is that so many of the psalms that are meant to be sung together, this is like, by the sons of Korah, for first, meant, these are meant for singing, and these songs are like, God, where are you? You've abandoned us. It's like those are literally like they sang that like until like our culture doesn't sing that, but all around the world, every Sunday there are churches that are singing that song
Yeah.
because they sing the hymns, they sing the psalms, like every one of them, every single psalm gets sung throughout the course of the year. They are singing "Bash the Babies' Heads Against the Rocks." That's freaking dark, dude. I don't understand it. I don't have context for it. But the scripture's not saying you understand this. It's saying here this is, wrestle with this.
We don't like to wrestle though.
That's how Israel, the nation of Israel, got its name. I mean, we have to wrestle. Being the people of God is wrestling with God.
Maybe
And
it's
so,
just maybe it's certain church traditions where, because like I come from a pretty mainline charismatic evangelical
yeah,
stream, right? And I know
yeah,
you're involved in an Anglican church, at least I think you are.
yeah. These days,
And
yeah,
maybe in those spaces, like that is a bit more standard practice than it
yeah. We
is.
have space for that, but
Yeah, but I would say most evangelical non-denom churches do not. And I
yeah,
guess the question is like, how do we help them think about this or
yeah.
work on
That's a
this?
dude. I don't know. I mean, that's part of why I've been trying to create resources that are like,
Yeah.
hey, here's a really great song. The song is really easy to use. Here's chord charts. It's really look who's singing it. You trust these guys. This is Matt and Paul. They're singing a song about doubt, like in
Yeah.
G, you know, and they want to sing that song. They know and it's straight scripture. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to exactly to do that other than to point to the Psalms and say, this is what the people of God have always sung and for a reason. And it's because the people of God in the pews are asking those questions. And that is the story. I mean, the reading in the daily lectionary today was in Numbers. It's like where Moses got told he's not going to see the promised land, and but his children will. And it's like, oh, that is the story. Is like there's wandering in the desert before people get to the promised land, and
Yeah.
it just is our story.
Part of it is wrestling over these things that we're talking about together, getting in the same room together,
Yeah,
and let's talk about this, because there has to be a little bit of courage. There's a certain song archetype that generates a certain congregational response, right?
sure,
In
yeah,
terms of hands in the air, which is, I think, what a lot of pastors want to see is engagement. That's a big
sure,
word in the church. So hands in the air, loud singing. But in order to sing what you're talking about, man, you have to be able to pastorally say, we can sacrifice that for this one
Mm-hmm.
song this Sunday. This is the kind of song that's probably not going to be sung very loud, or it might not get hands in the air just because of the theme,
Yeah.
right? But this is good for us. And it's okay for us to sacrifice a little bit of the energy and response in order for us to sing what is healthy for our souls, right? And just
Yeah.
wrestling together as worship leaders, pastors.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll say this too: as a guy who's just played a couple thousand concerts, you can't have every song be a banger. It doesn't. That's a bad show.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing in church, though.
I
Is
mean,
is
that's like
stringing together bangers.
a meal that's all dessert. I mean, that's like a great show is where you got the good. It's like you got the. It's a good meal. It's like you got the opener, and then you bring it down, and you bring it back up. It's got an arc.
Maybe it's
I mean,
because like worship is typically it's like 2 to 3 songs. And so the
mhm.
thinking like there's just not enough time to have that sort of storytelling. It's like we just got to hit them. We got to smash them over the head with energy.
Yeah. Man, I wrote a post a few months ago about just kind of encouraging songwriters on my Substack, encouraging songwriter worship leaders to like do a song where they have the band like quiet the band, because how important it is to be able to hear the people next to you sing. Like one of the most important things I think about going to church and singing songs is about hearing people sing the gospel, because there are weeks when you don't feel it, and knowing that your second grade teacher or your plumber or your dentist or that these people that in your life and your community, that you see them, and maybe they're not all great singers, and maybe that's actually the point, that they're singing it, like that this community kind of is carrying it. That carries so much more value as a humanity than that person whose job it is to sing that to me. And also, there are weeks where like
Yes.
I need to carry this for my friend, for my kids. They need to see their dad singing this. There are weeks where I need to see my kids singing this. So to create space, so that's a thing I would encourage worship leaders to do. I couldn't encourage it strongly enough, to create space. It doesn't have to be every song. To create, but long enough moments where people can actually like let their guard down and sing out so they can hear each other. But also to know that like the great movies are the ones where you don't know what's going to happen. A great story is one where like, also Donald Miller, the author, I remember seeing him speak years ago, and he talked about if a guy is needs to go pick up a pencil, he's like, what makes the story great is not him going to get the pencil. It's what's between him and the pencil. He's like, if it's just nothing, it's not a great story. If it's a mountain with ninjas, that's a great story. And it's like, oh, that's it. It's like if we know that there's this darkness before the victory, like, oh, that makes those hands go up all the better. Like that last song is going to be bigger if you go darker. I would encourage people to know that. That's actually
That's
that's called a U2 show, man.
come on.
That's
Yeah.
how they do it.
Andy, this has been so much fun. I got to let you go, which all that means is we have to do a round 2
Well, let's do it, man.
in the coming
Let's do
months,
it.
maybe
Thanks for
later
having
this
me.
year.
I hope
Because
it wasn't too depressing, but I really enjoyed talking about this
oh no,
stuff,
we
man.
we
So
actually
fun.
we prefer more depressing conversations actually here. At least I do. It feels more interesting to me to be honest and real than just positive and encouraging all the time, just because that's not real life.
No, I think this
So
stuff is positive encouragement. I mean, to
it
talk
is.
about what is
Well,
true and is beautiful is
yes,
like, it is life giving.
it is. This was very
So
life giving for
thank
me.
you for having
I
me.
know it will be for our listeners too. But appreciate you, man. And let's do a round 2 soon.
Thank you so much.